Luxury is not about excess. It's about leaving a place more meaningful than it was found. Let that sink in for a second. Welcome to this explainer. This quote from a recent Luxure editorial perfectly captures a massive yet quiet revolution happening right now in the way we travel. For decades, the whole narrative around tourism, especially in these stunning Mediterranean hotspots, has been totally obsessed with volume, right? Counting arrivals, tallying up footprints, basically the more the merrier. But what if we completely flipped that script? What if we stopped looking at how many people are visiting and started focusing on the intention behind their visits? That's exactly what we're diving into today. A huge paradigm shift from mass travel to what we're calling intentional tourism, or slow luxury.
We're going to unpack a super fascinating EU-funded study to see exactly how high-value, low-volume tourism actually functions out in the real world. This landmark study was presented by essentially Mallorca alongside the University of the Balearic Islands. And the best part, it draws on some incredibly deep, anonymized transactional data from CaixaBank Research and Ibastat. We're zooming in on the Balearic Islands, think places like Mallorca and Ibiza, to see what actually happens to a local economy, its culture, and its permanent residents when a destination decides to pivot and focus on the premium guest.
So, Section 1. The Architecture of Intent.
Before we get into the hard numbers, we really need to understand the philosophy behind them. We're talking about a deliberate shift away from merely consuming a holiday destination to intentionally preserving it. Take Luxure Cathedral in Mallorca, for example. It is a brilliant, stunning symbol of the island's centuries-old cultural heritage. Now, in the past, massive influxes of summer tourists were increasingly seen as a huge strain on the local infrastructure and historical sites, just like this one. But industry experts, backed by this new research, are realizing something pretty wild. The sophisticated, slow luxury traveler doesn't erode this heritage. They actually act as an anchor for it. When hospitality is treated as an art of curation rather than a volume-driven factory, the traveler literally becomes a steward of the landscape. But, how do we actually measure that stewardship?
Let's look at Section 2, Defining the Premium Guest.
All right, it's time to shift from beautiful philosophy to some hard economic proof. According to CaixaBank's Transactional Insights, which, by the way, analyzed actual point-of-sale data, the average international visitor in the Balearics spends about €46 a day. Okay, fair enough. But the premium guest, they contribute an average of €731 daily. That is not a typo. CaixaBank actually defines a luxury tourist as someone spending at least 10 times the median. Think about what that means. That's a massive injection of capital per individual footprint. You can essentially have significantly fewer people placing physical strain on the island while generating an exponentially higher economic benefit. It's a total game changer.
And this isn't just a sudden passing fad. We're looking at a deliberate, steady climb here. Back in 2014, guests checking into five-star spots represented just under 4% of the total hotel market in the Balearics. By 2025, that's projected to basically double to around 7.84%. But I want you to look at that huge spike right in the middle. In 2020, when the world basically paused and global mass travel absolutely collapsed, the premium sector didn't just hold its ground, it spiked in market share to over 9%. It absolutely proves that even during a massive global fracturing, this conscious, slow-paced approach to tourism is incredibly resilient. The demand for safe, beautiful, and curated spaces is just non-negotiable for this demographic.
So, where exactly is all this happening? Let's talk about the geography of luxury. This elegant, high-value commerce doesn't just blanket the islands randomly. It naturally gravitates toward and concentrates in specific enclaves. We're talking about corners of the archipelago that inherently demand a slower pace and a much deeper appreciation of the local environment. Let's break down these hotspots. In Mallorca, the twin centers of sophistication are Palma and Calvia. They're capturing 27.3% and 27.2% of the foreign luxury card market, respectively. Over in the Pitiosas, Ibiza sees 25.3% of its foreign tourist spending coming straight from luxury transactions. And the serene, incredibly beautiful enclave of San Josep de Sa Talaia, it actually leads the pack, with premium spending making up a staggering 30% of its international economic intake. These regions are actively proving, out in the real world, that prioritizing quality over quantity absolutely works. Moving on to Section 3, the economic ripple effect.
Now, there's this really persistent myth out there that luxury is totally insular. You know the idea, that all this money just stays locked away behind manicured resort gates, and the local town sees none of it. But the reality is this absolutely staggering number, €2.3 billion,
By capturing just 27% of the total non-resident expenditure, the premium luxury sphere infuses 2.3 billion euros of direct value into the Balearic Islands in a single season. That's an enormous amount of capital flooding right into the local ecosystem. But again, the real question is, where does it go once the guest actually leaves their hotel room?
Well, breaking down that 2.3 billion euros completely shatters the myth of the insular luxury resort. When premium guests step outside their hotels, their choices directly sustain the broader cultural fabric of the islands. We see an 18.49% impact on art and culture. That means they are actively investing in the preservation of Balearic creativity. Fine gastronomy sits at 17.72%. That's directly funding the culinary artisans and the local farmers who keep those amazing traditional Mediterranean flavors alive. And with premium mobility and high-end leisure both sitting at nearly 23%, it ensures that local boutique operators, curators, and transport services continue to flourish. The money is literally flowing outward, right into the hands of local business owners.
Which brings us to Section 4, Sustaining the Community.
Ultimately, the true test of any local economy, especially in an island environment, is how it impacts the permanent residents who actually live there year-round. Researchers used economic modeling to basically track the entire life cycle of a spent euro. And without getting bogged down in all the heavy math, this data proves exactly how the premium hospitality sector integrates with circular economy principles. We're talking things like waste reduction and energy efficiency in top-tier hotels. It acts as a vital macroeconomic anchor that economically stabilizes the entire region.
And let's look at the exact weight of that anchor. This singular, highly refined segment of travelers is responsible for 7.75% of the total economic production of the Balearic Islands. It contributes 7.14% to the region's collective gross value added. And, perhaps most importantly for the locals, it accounts for 7.35% of all regional employment. This is huge. It's not just about catering to high-end holidaymakers, it's about providing genuine, structural economic stability for the people who call these islands home.
To really put a human face on that percentage, we are talking about 37,296 local jobs. Let that number sink in. That is over 37,000 livelihoods proudly sustained by this intentional, slow-paced approach to travel. From the boutique manager working in Palma to the olive oil producer out in the countryside, these are real families. Their economic well-being is stabilized by visitors who prioritize deep, meaningful engagement with the destination over cheap, rapid consumption.
Which brings us right back full circle. As that La Luxure editorial so beautifully puts it, hospitality is an act of stewardship, a profound, harmonious relationship between the traveler, the host, and the land. The data we've explored today totally validates this. It's pretty clear that when we craft and participate in experiences that truly honor a destination's landscape and its culture, we aren't just having a better vacation. We are actively choosing the absolute most sustainable and economically responsible path forward for the places we claim to love.
So, I'll leave you with this question to chew on. Will your next journey merely consume a destination, or will you use the architecture of intent to leave it more meaningful than you found it? The data clearly shows us what's possible when we choose intention over excess. It completely changes the local economy, it preserves cultural heritage, and honestly, it creates a vastly superior experience for the traveler too. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep learning, keep exploring, and remember to travel intentionally.